All right. Far reach. There you go. Ow. Hello, hello, hello. All right. What are we going to be discussing today? The pain of healing. The pain of healing. And that tiny little bridge from torment to illumination. That bridge, that journey where you transcend. Many say it's painful, many say there is suffering in it. Why? Why is there suffering in healing? Well, that's what we're going to find out. It is probably one of the most important journeys that anybody can take. And we may call it healing, but in reality is coming whole, coming to the self, coming home. So, let's get into it. There are so many people who say they don't need therapy, they don't need healing, they're totally fine, yet they feel empty, scared, numb, no meaning in life. They seem to attract terrible partners, they blame, and yet they say, I am reconstructed, I am fine, I have abs, therefore I'm good. I've actually heard that. Someone actually told me that. Someone that at the same time told me, but I feel empty inside. All right. Then you need healing. You need reconnection. You need to come back to yourself because parts of you are fragmented. They're repressed or disconnected. Pretty much the same thing. So, let's get into it. Healing is not a passive process, but a conscious decision to transform profound inner torment into a deliberate journey of recovery. It is a challenging climb towards redemption, a metamorphosis from darkness to illumination that sears the soul. The journey of healing is lost to so many people who give up their agency of health to pills, drug and alcohol, abusive behaviors, addictions, avoidance, blaming, or simply living in suffering, a numbness disconnected from their vitality and true being. Many people are unaware of their need for healing, and even fewer are aware that they are the architects of their own healing journey. And you, the viewer, are the master of your healing journey. Oish, fuck. Don't fuck with me like that. And man, I fucked it up. You often hear, I don't need healing. You know, like I said earlier, I often hear people say, I don't need healing, I know who I am. Or, I am physically fit, therefore I am fine. Or, I make tons of money. I'm fine, I don't need therapy, I don't need healing. And yet, at the exact same time, they say, I feel empty inside. I still feel the pain and fear I felt as a child. I have constant anger or fear inside me. I have talked to people and they have actually told me that they still feel the terror or the pain they felt from their childhood trauma. As adults, they still feel it. And at the same time, they say they don't need introspection or healing. And yet, these same people who say they don't need healing, they don't need to grow, although that's kind of ridiculous. We should be growing until the day we die. But these people behave visibly behave like children, throwing tantrums to simple responsibilities, selfishly expecting to be given more than they give, or reacting from fear or rage to challenges that arise in their life. They feel empty, lost, or numb. This is partly that same narrative that you have heard, I'm sure, because I've heard it both online and in person, where men are saying that women should lower the standards. This is part of that, where they say they don't need to heal, they don't need to grow, and yet they tell you lower your standards because I cannot meet them. And by the way, side note, because we're not going to get into this, the standards, they're basic standards. They're not overly high standards. We will discuss this later. Not in this episode, but the standards women are placing are actually the regular standards of an adult. Okay? Respect, communication, reciprocation, commitment, care, kindness, understanding, cleanliness, financial responsible. It's not really about being rich. Of course, there are some women who are asking for that. There are unhealthy women, immature women who are asking for that. But most of the healthy women I have talked to or have heard online are really just wanting an equal partner with maturity, emotional intelligence, a bit of purpose in life, something that interests you. Bathe, for goodness sakes. I mean, it's a silly thing. You may think it's silly, but there are men who are not bathing. They can't clean their house. They literally cannot take out the garbage. They don't clean. They need their moms to do everything. I know someone like that. Okay? Anyways, let's continue in the healing. The healing subject. That's where we are. Let's not sidetrack. Let's get back to it. So, these men who are coming from rage and fear and still throw tantrums to simple responsibilities, feel lost or numb, still are able to say, I don't need to change or heal. They still say that. Many people avoid, stay stagnant, or play the victim by blaming others, blaming their environment for their own limitations, and ask for others to lower their standards so they don't have to do the work. But the thing is, when a person has specific standards, they have them because they offer those standards. They hold themselves to those standards. And that means they have done the journey of healing to get to those standards. So you cannot ask them to lower them for you. If you want to be with someone who has those standards, then, my friend, you're going to have to meet them. You're going to have to step up to that level. If not, you're going to have to go with someone who has the same level of standards as you. There are also wounds that hide under socially accepted habits. Workaholic, perfectionism, overscheduling, busyness, over-dieting and over-exercising, hyper-independence, and people-pleasing. Now, I ask you to introspect, to connect to your body, to go within while you're watching this, okay? And to feel your inner state. And to think, connecting with this part, seeing your general state of being or emotional state that you are throughout your days, throughout the week, throughout the month, throughout the year. If you feel a constant state of emptiness, fear, rage, numbness, or lack of vitality or meaning in your life, then I say, my friend, you need healing. Any of them. You choose any of them. If you feel that, you need introspection. You need growth. You need reconnection. You need healing and transformation. No matter how much money you make, how much fame you have, how many abs you have, or how perfect your life may seem in the outside, your soul, if you feel those, your soul needs attention and restoration. Now, what is healing? You have the known, simple, and visible healing of the flesh, muscles, bones, or organs. Then there is the immune system, from a simple flu to a disease. Most people will admit, whenever you cut yourself, when you feel sick, you can easily see it and acknowledge that you need healing. Then you have healing of the soul, the nervous system, the emotional system, and the psychological system. These are much more challenging to see and to understand, or even come to terms with. The difficulty of this healing is that your inner self has built walls and layers to protect you against seeing those parts of you that need healing. So we fall into denial, we project, we blame, we mirror. All of these are tactics to keep us safe, because we're not really safe, but it is the nervous system that creates this complicated way for us to not see the wounds, the internal wounds of the soul that need healing. In a way, is to protect us from seeing those wounds, because sometimes it's too difficult to admit some of those parts of us. And until we are ready to see them, we will be blind to them by our own subconscious, our own conscious. So it's a lot trickier than just having a simple cut in your hand, but yet so necessary, and it affects your entire life. Now, this healing of the soul, this healing of the nervous system, or the psychology, is actually the healing of the child self within us. Okay, the wounds of the child, imprints. These wounds lay deep in our subconscious, whether repressed or created at such a young age that you did not hold any concepts of the world or intellectual capacity to understand what was happening. However, the nervous system still imprints those wounds in the depth of your subconscious, infecting the child's growing life to adulthood, or simply imprinting or giving you frameworks that work against you in your present life. These wounds and frameworks are the most complex and painful to see and understand. They also affect your life in the most profound and destructive ways, affecting your relationships, work, emotional regulation, and immune system. Yes, your psychological wounds, your childhood wounds can affect your immune system. You can get sick. Now, what is healing of the soul, of the nervous system? To understand the complexity of the wounds of the soul, let's work with a little concept. It might make it easier for you to understand how important it is to introspect and heal, and to be humble that even if you don't think anything is wrong with you, there may be something you can mature at, something within you that can be dissolved. There's always something. We are constant state of change as we grow, really literal change from childhood to old age. And sometimes we can get stagnant in some parts of our inner self. So there's always something. But to help you understand how important it is, how this affects your entire life, let's work with a little concept. Now, when you cut your finger, get the flu, or break a bone, it's easy to see and feel the need for healing. Now, healing means returning back to the original state of wholeness, painlessness, energy, and vitality. Healing of the soul or the nervous system, of the psychology, the wounds of the child hold a similar concept. Healing is returning to wholeness, to the original state of painlessness, vitality, and vibrancy. Sometimes the wounds are even generational. So even when you were born with a wound from your generations. These wounds can go back in history. That's how complex this is. Now here's the little exercise. Imagine you have a large cut on your hand. Every time you grab something, you feel that pain running up your arm. As you can imagine, the cut on your hand would not just affect how you hold things, but if it's big enough, it could affect your energy levels, moods, and even facial expressions. It can actually affect your whole life. I mean, I've had it where I hurt my pinky toe and it would affect the entire way I walked. It's always fascinating. With such a tiny part of your body, a tiny cut on it, you actually can change how you walk. And if you don't care for this cut on your hand, it could get so infected that you could end up having your hand amputated. Now imagine if your hand was responsible for your self-identity, your perspectives, and your frameworks of the world. What kind of self-identity and frameworks of the world would your hand hold when it's wounded versus when it's not? As you can imagine, it would be quite different. When your hand is hurt, everything you grab would hurt. Now, I'm sure you wouldn't blame the object you grab with your wounded hand for hurting you. It would be very easy to see that it's not the cup that hurts you, or the doorknob, or the bag you carry with your wounded hand that hurts you, but the cut on your hand that causes the pain. You know, you wouldn't permanently stop grabbing anything in your life as to not get hurt again. You'd understand that by healing, you'd be able to grab anything you want, whichever way you want it. Well, our nervous system and psychology is the same. Most of us do have unresolved or unhealed childhood wounds or frameworks that no longer serve our true self or being, affecting our perspectives, frameworks, and vitality. Vitality for life is super important, and so are our frameworks and perspectives. I mean, they literally tell you what the world is. And if it is distorted due to a childhood wound, then you literally live in a distorted world that you react. And by reacting to that distortion, you recreate it. It gets complex. However, because we don't see or understand when we get wounded, we create all kinds of coping mechanisms to avoid touching that wound. We blame and attack the world for touching or triggering those wounds, projecting that pain onto others for provoking it. Man, We even create self-identities and views of the world based on those wounds, on that fear, on that pain. The wounds go beyond simple pains. They stem from unmet childhood needs like love, safety, acceptance, authenticity, nurturing, and healthy boundaries. When these fundamental needs are unmet, deep wounds form that affect your entire life. Everything in life that triggers you. Sorry, I don't know why I got so serious in that part. Everything in life that triggers you are signs where you hold your cuts, scrapes, and wounds of your child's self-nervous system. So the nervous system of your childhood. Everything that triggers you are the signs where you're holding those wounds. But unlike a cut or a cold, that once you heal it is healed, as long as you don't cut it again, you're good. The healing of the self is not a place you get to, but a consistent state you enter. It actually compares more to something like nutrition or sleep. You can't just eat healthy for a month or sleep for a week and be good. A healthy person eats healthy or sleeps well for life. They understand it's a way of life. A relationship with nutrition, sleep, or exercise. You don't exercise once or exercise for a month or even 3 months and then say, I'm done, I'm good, I achieved it, I healed. No, it's a relationship that you have with it for life. It's like you're in a permanent state of health. You end up becoming a person who enjoys the health of food, sleep, and exercise. Well, healing the self and the soul is the same. You don't come to a place and say, now I am healed. That doesn't happen. If you're saying that, you have not yet entered the journey of healing. It's actually a beautiful journey of self-discovery. You actually enter a new way of life where you learn your needs, exercise your boundaries and values, walk with integrity, practice kindness to the self and others, practice respect, nurture, generosity, understanding, forgiveness, acceptance, authenticity, self-truth, and responsibility. You come to understand that these are practices and not just concepts or feelings. If you grab any of these, you can take years, maybe not years, but definitely 6 months learning to truly practice it and live it and walk it. That is what healing is. That is what transformation is. You grab this whole list I gave you and you practice it, apply it in your life, in every way of your life, and you hold yourself to that standard. No matter what triggers you, you hold yourself to that standard. That is your base. It is built by these values, by these qualities, these practices. You practice it every day, even when life challenges you to fall to disrespect or abusive behaviors. You hold yourself, your newly learned values, your practice of health and love. And that's what health is. This list: needs, boundaries, respect, generosity, kindness, understanding, fairness, integrity, truth of the self, keeping your word. That is health, but not in concept, in practice, applied practice, no matter what challenges come in life. That is how you reconstruct yourself and how you grow, evolve, and change your entire life. Everything changes when you come from this. It is not a place you get to, but a practice you enter. It's a way of life, a daily practice of taking responsibility for being a healthy, kind, and whole human being. Now, all of these unresolved wounds keep us immature, very immature. Black and white thinking. If you don't meet all my needs, you don't love me. Emotional hijacking. Small conflicts trigger childhood abandonment fears, leading to explosive reactions or withdrawal. Victim mentality. Blaming partners for your shortcomings rather than taking responsibility for your healing. You know, these patterns sabotage relationships because they're rooted in the past. They're not from the present moment. And until we confront them, we will keep replaying the same dynamics. This is why you see people get into the same abusive relationships, in a cycle, just stuck. It's because they have not yet confronted their wounds and healed. Or even people who feel they keep meeting, I want to say, the other side of it, right? You have a person who keeps falling for abusive relationships, and then there's the abuser who keeps falling in these relationships that he has to blame them, he has to attack them, he has to accuse them of lying or of cheating. Maybe they're not doing it, but he's just replaying the same dynamic in his head, finding partners that may have a tiny bit of a similar dynamic of what he experienced as a child, and then that triggers the wound. And they will accuse their partners of cheating when maybe she just said hi to someone, to an ex, and that's it. Who knows? I mean, I've experienced this. So I know. Nevertheless, it's important to face them because you will forever live in a cyclical state of insanity, expecting different results. I'm sure everybody has heard of the quote. Supposedly, Einstein said it. Doing the same thing over and over and over again and expecting a different result, it's the meaning of insanity. And not facing your wounds puts you in a state of insanity because you're going in these cycles, responding or reacting to a past that doesn't exist anymore. If you say, but I had such a hard childhood, I can't change, I can't grow anymore, you should see where I come from. The difference between where I was and where I am is massive, meaning that they don't need to grow anymore because they came from such a hard situation. I'm sorry. You still have to continue. You still have to keep going. Gotta keep evolving. You have to look around you. Look at the people around you. Maybe not just around you. Look at the people of the world. Go online, research, and you will see that people from all backgrounds, rich, poor, different ethnicities, all have suffering. They've all suffered. And many make the same excuses that you do, the same abusive behaviors that you do or that you have. When you examine your worst qualities, you'll see that others behave in the same harmful ways. Our dark sides aren't unique. They are basic and shallow. And when you start researching those worst qualities of yourself, you will see how many people do the same thing. And it just takes away all the magic of your suffering. Now, self-awareness is super important. That's where you start. Well, we'll get it a little bit later. Start with doubt. And then self-awareness. So to bring self-awareness to yourself, this is where it's super important to research your worst qualities. Research your worst qualities beyond surface feelings like depression or loneliness. Ask hard questions. Do I allow degrading treatment? Do I abuse or manipulate my partner? Am I inauthentic, avoidant, or unwilling to take responsibility? Once you see that others behave similarly, you stop making your darkness special and you see it as an infection needing healing. It is also important to ask questions like, what is insulting, degrading, blaming, comparing, jealousy, abusive, controlling, manipulation, and why are they harmful? I went through it, man. I researched all of them for years and then applied and introspected and analyzed myself. How was I understanding these words, these concepts? How was I allowing this treatment? What did it truly meant? And it gave me a growth and a wisdom I never thought I could have. Ignorance keeps you in the dark. That's the thing. When you ignore your emotions, you ignore others' emotions. If you don't take care of yourself, you'll become needy and manipulative, forcing others to fulfill the needs you're ignoring. And by doing so, you will betray yourself. Healing is about befriending yourself and resolving conflict with yourself. It is the end of conflict with the self, and it all begins with doubt. Now let's look at the power of doubt. Uy, my poor hand. Doubt. Whether it is our beliefs that must suffer doubt to grow, or our certainties about ourselves that must be shattered. Doubt is the agency of change and renewal. Doubt overthrows the petty monarch ego whose tyranny enslaves. If you don't doubt yourself, you will stay stuck. James Hollis. The task for each one of us is to risk the increased anxiety of ambiguity which doubt brings in order to receive the blessings of growth. You know, frameworks like all Black people are criminals. Women are not equal to men. Men don't cry or ask for help. Women who dress provocative are asking for it, and sensitive men are weak. These frameworks are adapted narratives imprinted in childhood. They are not true. They are individual and cultural illusions. Now, coming back to doubt, we never left doubt. This is part of questioning your frameworks, of doubting your frameworks. Maybe, just maybe you have imprints that are not correct. Maybe your views on women are not right. Maybe your emotional explosions are not normal. Maybe your partner isn't the problem. Perhaps it's you who is ruining your own life, and you who have the power to change. Maybe, just maybe, you can heal and become an evolved version of yourself. The power of doubt opens you up to curiosity and learning, which are incredibly important, and the two states babies or children are in. And that is the time that you evolve the most. And this is the parts that humans lose, adults lose. Doubt is the beginning of healing, of change, of evolution, and manifesting the person you're supposed to be. The next powerful practice to enter is the state of taking radical responsibility, full responsibility to what happens to you and around you. Without this, you will not evolve. Let's get into the healing process. Why do some people say it's so hard to heal? Fuck, we're back in business. Okay, here's the thing. Entering an unknown state of safety hurts and burns, because the unknown is not supposed to feel safe. It's actually not supposed to be safe, even if it is the safest state. Until it becomes known, it will feel dangerous. Embarking on the healing journey is like climbing a ladder forged from metal, rising from the depths of hell. The ladder's lower rungs are immersed in the searing fires of torment, the heat so intense that each step feels unbearable to the touch. The agony of the blistering metal threatens to make you fall, to surrender to the weight of the pain. But if you stop, you remain trapped in the hell of your suffering. Yet, with every excruciating step, you draw closer to something greater, a light, a sense of peace, of freedom. Each moment of hardship carries you upward, closer to the heavens, towards healing and hope. So, why is there so much pain and suffering in the healing process? And I'm not referring to the cycle of misery we can live in while we exist in our unhealed state. The misery of depression, blame, numbness, rage, emptiness, fear, anxiety, loneliness, shame, existential guilt, and self-betrayal. I'm not talking about that pain. That's not really the one that hurts and burns, although there is torment in it. But that's not what I'm talking about. I mean, yes, existing under those conditions truly amounts to an unbearable burden. However, that's not what burns while climbing the ladder to wholeness. For many, this misery is their comfort zone. I mean, for almost everybody that has not done that journey, that is the comfort zone. The comfort zone is the misery. And they would rather stay in their own misery than do the work to get out. It actually is the getting out that hurts and burns. The unknown feels like an impossible task. It triggers insecurities and terrors. Going against the comfort zone of misery can trigger fears that feel like solid walls of limitation. This is the part that hurts, that burns. The change from misery to light. The raw edge of renewal is what cuts deepest. That searing instant when one chooses to leave behind the familiar embrace of suffering and step deliberately onto the demanding path toward wholeness. We are creatures of habit, of systemic habit. We very quickly create systems that then we habitually follow. Habits are ingrained patterns of behavior that the brain uses to conserve energy and allow for efficient functioning. These conscious and unconscious habits play a significant role in our daily lives and can influence our personality, values, and overall behaviors. As you can see, our brain and nervous system want habit and familiarity. That's what it's looking for. Funny thing is, we actually, as humans, we don't actually chase for happiness. We're chasing for familiarity. That's what we're looking for. That's why we end up in these cycles. Let's say if someone keeps attracting an alcoholic as a partner consistently, if their father was an alcoholic, it's because our brain is looking for familiarity, because familiarity is supposed to be safety. And that's what it wants. And when things are distorted, fortunately, we end up seeking the familiarity of the suffering we experienced. That's why it's so important to grow and to heal and to get out of that. Like, it doesn't really matter whether they're healthy or not. What matters is whether they are known or habitual. Our nervous system can trigger danger when we enter the unknown. Even if you're going from toxic known to healthy unknown, you will feel danger. By doing the work of coming whole, of healing, we build resilience to the unknown and can manage well in new or unknown situations. This new resilience of functioning at the edge of the unknown is the process of evolution and manifesting your potential. Although we all seek healing without pain, release without suffering, and suffering without descent, but no one crosses life's swamplands without getting muddy. And so, there is no healing without suffering, release without compensatory cost, and salvation without first visiting hell. It is what the soul asks of us, to visit our inner shadows, take responsibility for our wounds, and navigate the swamplands of the soul. James Hollis. No one is coming to save you. You can't repress your darkness and expect to get anywhere in life. You can't repress it without consequences. True healing and liberation comes through a process that often involves discomfort, sacrifice, and self-confrontation. There are no shortcuts. Hollis frequently points out that our psyche requires us to engage with our suffering to move forward. While avoiding this process might feel easier in the short term, it ultimately leaves us stuck in old patterns. Hollis' works invites us to see the descent not as punishment, but as an invitation for transformation. Triggers, as I've said many times, are signals to see where you're stuck. The core of our triggers is usually fear, which then triggers avoidance, anger, shame, manipulation, guilt, or disassociation. This is the hardest part, the muddy walk through our swamplands. We must feel this discomfort and sit with it, befriend it, learn to understand it, and shift its energy. We must not react from it, but learn to understand it and dissolve it by letting go of the narratives. Okay, the hardest part of healing, pay attention. The hardest part of healing is reacting differently to the same situation. That's evolution. Fear has no logic. It tells stories of giant monsters that engulf your entire nervous system. Yet the inner self-truth whispers to stay and confront the situation with respect and empowerment, not abuse. This is where the pain and suffering of healing happens. Going against the grain of your own habits and going against your inner voices feels like you're going against everything that protects you, the tyranny of the ego. We are habitual animals and we trust the known, even if it's misery. You can tell where someone is in their journey by how they speak about their state. The person who declares, "I am healed, I don't need any therapy or change because I am fine," rarely understands the true nature of healing. They likely remain confined within invisible limitations and disconnected from their deeper self. In contrast, someone who says, "I feel more grounded and whole, yet I remain open to learning," recognizes that healing is a lifelong journey. They understand that actual growth involves continuous self-discovery and the gentle integration of new insights into their being. They understand that therapy is guidance to self-discovery. They know that we all exist in our frameworks and delusions, and our work is to expand those frameworks and learn to react to the present moment with more clarity. They understand the importance of radical responsibility, self-honesty, and authenticity. They enter a constant state of self-awareness of the body so as to not be run over by the child wounds. They can easily understand their shortcomings and are open to understand how their past has made them. They appreciate and are excited to continue letting go of old frameworks and expanding their perspectives. They are excited and curious of who they can become in the journey of dissolving limitations by facing their fears. Okay, now, as we are speaking about this journey of coming whole, coming home, coming to oneself, and therefore by doing so expanding and manifesting your potential, I'd like to share my understanding of God, because it is greatly related to this. God is the state of being at the edge of expanding your perspectives to let go of old biases and prejudices that blind you to a truer experience, removing veils that separate you from a deeper truth. The divine, in my belief, is not some static state of perfection, but a dynamic edge of growth. That moment of expansion where we push beyond our current limitations. It's alive and ever in growth. The person who declares themselves completely healed has essentially closed themselves off from the divine edge of expansion, while the person who remains open continues to access it. So I say, be like God, do God's work, and expand. All right, this is what I have for today. Thank you for listening and watching. I hope you can take a little something from this, and I hope you truly enter a healing journey, because right now, more than ever, we need it. there is a massive separation between people, races, cultures. There is a massive separation between men and women. Women have chosen to grow, to do the therapy, to look at themselves, to expand their limitations, to understand value and worth. And men, not all men, but a lot of men have not. So I challenge the men out there. I challenge you. Step into this journey of healing. Humble yourself. That maybe there's more to you than you know. And maybe you do have limitations and wounds that are keeping you stuck and immature. Because, my dear friends, it's pretty bad out there when it comes to the mating game, the matchmaking. It's pretty bad. Women are entering a new league, and men are not keeping up. So, do your growth, do your maturing, challenge yourself, have the courage. Do it. Ciao, my friends. Ciao.